Okay. A little more on the aftermath of Diggs and Josh Allen. And, our and this I tread lightly because our whole thing was sparked by my belief that there should have been times when Josh Allen took charge of the relationship. And apparently something did happen that we didn't know about at the time. Tim Graham, who has covered the Bills forever, has a podcast named Tim Graham and Friends. Here is Graham from that podcast talking about the scene in the Bills locker room after they lost that Monday night game to the Jets, where the Jets lost Aaron Rodgers on the fourth snap. It was Zach Wilson. It looked like the Bills would win easily. The Bills lose in overtime. Right. And multiple turnovers from Allen. Here's Graham on the scene in the locker room after that 22-16 loss.
And Josh Allen was sitting there in full uniform with Kyle Allen trying to console him, and a stream of players coming up, patting him on the back, dapping him up. They were trying to pick the guy up. He had a towel draped over his head, and he just sat there. One thing I didn't include in the story was Stefon Diggs coming up to him after the game. And I didn't include it, I think, because as I recall, I didn't include it because I didn't know what Stefon Diggs said to him. But Josh Allen snapped at him. And he said, it's one game. And kind of motioned like, I'm not talking to you here. And Diggs walked away, and Josh was sat there. Maybe Stefon Diggs was saying something nice to him, and but he didn't snap at anybody else. A stream of players were coming over, popping him on the shoulder pads, I think, or patting him on the back, or, whatever. Like I said, dapping him up. Hey, man, we'll get him next week. And whatever Stefon Diggs said to him, Josh Allen wasn't having it.
Okay. I understand Tim Graham's explanation as stated for why he didn't include that in his story after week one. I reject it, frankly. And it's not a criticism of him. It's a reality of being someone who covers a team. That's the kind of thing that if you write that week one, the rest of your season is not going to be easy. Because the rest of your season, you're relying upon access from the team. The team is going to be pissed off that you put that out there and started something that they don't need. We're coming off of this loss. We don't need you shining a light on the fact that Josh Allen said to Stefon Diggs, snapped at Stefon Diggs, it's one effing game. I don't care if you didn't hear what Stefon Diggs said. You heard what Josh Allen said. How's that not newsworthy? How does that get buried? Here's how it gets buried. If you're going to cover a team, and I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying it is. If you're going to cover a team and you need access to that team, you are not going to gratuitously or unnecessary or even like, you're going to exercise discretion.
Sure.
At times.
Yeah.
Because you don't want your life to be harder because you're the asshole who stirred up Stefon Diggs getting snapped at by Josh Allen, and that consumed the balance of a short week going into a week 2 game that they had to win after losing on Monday night. That's the explanation that he's not going to give.
Well, yeah,
but I'll give it for him because it would apply to any beat writer in that circumstance. Because why wouldn't you report that? Why wouldn't you report that if you witnessed it?
Yeah, listen, it's survival, it's CYA, whatever, however you want to describe it. We've all been there. We've all done it. We've all been a part of it. It's a tough one. Yeah, you're going to release something that, is going to be a crap storm, and it's about the 2 most famous people on the football team, and your life is dependent on the access to that football team, and of course talking to those 2 guys and having a relationship with them gets you the most reads, clicks, whatever. So you're right, he made it a business decision. I have a hard time thinking he's the only guy in the locker room that heard Josh Allen probably snap at Stefon Diggs. There's probably other beat reporters that didn't report it either, right? I would think. Usually it's not just one guy by himself hanging around the locker room in that instance, right? But again, it goes back, and I'm not trying to start the. I want to take the alley-oop from Tim and get on you and go boom, dunked on you. See, he did yell at him, right? And have fun, but I'm not shocked to hear that. Listen, I'm sure it's not the only time he snapped at Stefon Diggs or Stefon Diggs snapped at him. With those 2 personalities and who they are and how intense they are about the sport, I wasn't shocked to hear that once that came out this weekend or Friday it was, I think.
And there really aren't many things that Stefon Diggs could have said to prompt that response. It's not some great mystery right? I doubt that it was some unreasonable reaction from Josh Allen to something innocuous. This stream of well-wishers is coming over to make Josh Allen feel better as he's depressed in his locker. I don't think Stefon Diggs just said the same thing everybody else was saying, and he picked Stefon Diggs to blow a gasket
Definitely
on.
not.
Diggs had to have said something. See what I'm talking about? This is exactly what I'm talking about, right? Something along those lines. Like this Dorsey guy or whatever it is that was up his butt about the way the team is failing to get to where it needs to be manifests itself in a week 1 loss to the Jets, a game they should have won easily once Aaron Rodgers gets injured. Diggs made some snarky comment. Diggs made some observation that reinforced whatever he believed about the organization, and that's what prompted Josh Allen to respond. I think common sense allows us to come to that conclusion. And here's why it comes out now. See, and again, I don't want to get crossways with Tim Graham. I've known him for a long time, haven't talked to him in a while, but it comes out now because it fits the agenda the Bills are trying to sell Stefon Diggs bad. Like what Stefon Diggs did something to get Josh Allen to yell at him. This is a moment where they're trying to get Bills fans who are distraught about the departure of Stefon Diggs. They're not happy. They don't understand it. Why did we do this? Why are we doing this? This is part of getting everybody on board. Stefon Diggs was causing trouble.
Yeah.
While he's here causing trouble, we don't want to shine a light on it.
Right.
Now that he's gone, we want everybody to know he was a troublemaker.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're probably right about that assessment. We don't know. Josh Allen's not been one to snap at anybody or be that kind of guy with other people. You know, Josh Allen, we know, is extremely, extremely hard on himself, right? I mean, remember the press conference after that game? He was sitting there in the shoulder pads. He was mad. I think he said same shit, different, year, something like that. Sorry, London, right?
Maybe that's what Diggs had said to him. Maybe he got mad at Diggs and then stole his line.
Well, maybe I was
conference.
thinking he was literally saying same bleep, different year. He was talking about him. That did cross my mind when I heard this. This like here we are again. Tough loss. I ended last year. This guy was in my face and in my ear talking about the Bengals loss, and now here we are. This year or me. And he's giving it to me again. I don't know, but obviously there was frustration there, and I think it goes back to how we started this conversation, Mike. You talked about Houston. They wanted Diggs there to get this started and get it going, and on the other side of that coin was Buffalo going, wait, we're about to start our offseason program, and we don't want you here, and we don't want our players answering questions, and that's why the deal wasn't great for Buffalo. I think the Houston Texans knew that. They took advantage of it. They obviously know Diggs wanted him out. Buffalo wanted Diggs out. It was over, and therefore that's why it looks like they fleeced him with this whole deal in general. And I just, as we're talking about it, we know there was a lot of other things at play here.
I still think it would have been better for the Bills to wait until after the draft. They could have finessed their way through the first couple of weeks of the offseason program because there's not a lot going on. It's weightlifting, it's running, it's cardio, it's meetings. Get through 2 weeks, unload Diggs after you draft a receiver or 2 or 3 without teams realizing, hey, the Bills are all over receivers in this draft. And Diggs can't be upset about his targets or his catches in week 1. He had 13 targets for 10 catches, 102 yards, one of his few 100-yard games, although he had 5 in the first 6 and none after that. 102 receiving yards and a touchdown in that loss to the Jets. So who knows what it was, but it surely was something consistent with things Diggs has said in the past to get Josh Allen to react that way. And I'm glad to know he reacted that way. I like knowing that. I like knowing that the quarterback was trying to take charge of the relationship, and maybe that's one of the reasons why they finally gave up on it. We want the quarterback to be the leader of the team. We don't want anyone to get in the way of Josh Allen leading the team, and Stefon Diggs was in the way of that happening.
I think so. I mean, at least from their side of the story, right? That seems to be the perceived notion there. And I feel like just knowing from people around the league that Buffalo feels like they did everything to try to make sure this relationship worked, did well, whatever. Now, I'm sure Stefon Diggs won't totally agree with that. And like we talked about last week with the last year's OTAs and him leaving the building, I'm sure Buffalo's at fault to a degree as well with some of the things they said.
Yeah, they told him to leave.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's that you're exactly right. I mean, that's not a delicate phrase for sure. But either way, I think both sides we know we're sick of each other, and that led to Buffalo getting him out of there in a hurry and for less than he's worth. That's for sure.
See, this is the kind of thing where when something like that happens and we apply our experience and common sense and try to project what this means for the relationship, there'll be some people out there who will say, oh, that's fan fiction. No, it's an effort to assess the situation and figure out what the end game is. When you have a mandatory minicamp and Stefon Diggs is there and then he's gone and the head coach makes it look like he's stormed out unauthorized and nobody knows where he is and they're worried about him. And we spend 24 hours under that cloud trying to figure out, is Stefon Diggs okay?
Right.
What's going on here? And then they admit they told him to leave. That's the kind of thing that breaks the camel's back.
Definitely.
And it's kind of amazing they found a way to hold it together for one season and not move on. In hindsight, you know what, Chris? In hindsight, they would have gotten more. Look at his numbers from last year. No, wait. Do it week 6. Sell high. I mean, he didn't do much after week 6. He had no 100-yard games after week 6. His high after that was 86 yards, and that was more aberration. 34 yards, 27 yards, 24 yards, 29 yards. He had 21 in the playoff game. If you really want to sell high, you trade him at the deadline. You trade him at the deadline. And maybe they wish after the fact that that's what they had done.
Well, I mean, in hindsight, yes, but I think we got to go back to the time. And at that time, what were we doing? Whoa, wobbly Jenga tower, Buffalo. Whoa, right? Yeah. So they're going, wait, we're trying to survive here. We're trying to win. We're trying to, not get knocked out of the playoffs. So, and to their credit, for good job by them holding it together, because we got dragged a little last year because after that went on, it kind of seems like the writing's on the wall that this might be the last year for Stefon Diggs in Buffalo. And people thought that was a crazy thing to think. And here we are, and look what happened, right? But, yeah, I mean, they obviously did a good job of trying to put their best foot forward, both of them, Diggs, the organization, to make the season work. But, yes, once I think teams got a good feel for how Buffalo was playing, how they were attacking, and this was part of, I think, the reason Dorsey did get fired. There just wasn't enough other answers, anything there, right? I think teams caught on to that, and then I think it feels like Joe Brady kind of took the right, I'm not going to just run this whole Ken Dorsey thing and make it about Diggs. We're going to start throwing to everybody. I'm going to have some plays where Shakir's the number one read and Knox is the number one read. And it's not going to be all about Diggs being the number one read. And we're going to make James Cook part of the passing offense. And they kind of started to evolve from there. And I would bet somewhere down the end of the season is where they started to get the confidence of, we don't need Diggs anymore. Look, he only had 34 yards. We're on a winning streak. We're playing well. The ball's being dispersed to everybody, right? And
they're not doubling him.
Exactly.
And they're not doubling him.
Exactly. Right. So I think that probably gave them the confidence to do this.
The rest of the offense isn't opening up because they're devoting extra resources to Stefon Diggs, which allows other guys to run free or beat single coverage. He's not contributing the way they used to. They're not doubling him the way they used to. This is the time to move on. And I think that Bills fans are twisted up about it for reasons similar to what we talked about earlier with the draft. I mean, the guys who produce yards, touchdowns, fantasy points, get
headlines,
you over under on prop bets, right? Those are the guys that some fans become overly enamored with.
Yeah.
And when that guy's gone now, they freak out. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? You know what you're going to do? You're going to find somebody else. Look what the Chiefs did. They moved on from Tyreek Hill. Not that they have solved that problem, but they've won every Super Bowl that's been played since they moved on from Tyreek Hill. So it's about the team. What's in the best interest of the team? And sometimes there can be that one guy that is just enough of a pain in the ass that upsets the apple cart and hurts the vibe and requires action to be taken to extricate that person from the situation so that everybody else can thrive. That's the key, and that's what they're doing. That's what the Chiefs did with Tyreek Hill. That's what the Bills did with Stefon Diggs.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're cooking like, let's make it more the committee approach, right? Let's make sure our leader is our leader, and we don't have somebody infringing on that. We know who that is, Josh Allen. And, by all due accounts, and I'm not saying they're right or anything like that, they feel like he was a distraction to their football team too. So I think they're looking at it like, hey, we're moving on, and we think we can be better, without him. Now we'll see, because we know the microscope, whatever, the bullseye, it's all on them, just like it was with the Chiefs and Mahomes when Tyreek Hill left. I mean, think about how many people, it's laughable when you think about how many people went, well, Mahomes won't be the same this year now without Tyreek Hill. I mean, really, come on, laughable. And you're kind of hearing that already with the Josh Allen and the Bills, and we'll see where it goes. But they obviously need some help there. Like you said, they got a draft. They probably need to make a move in free agency. They need to do something to bolster that room a little bit more than what they got right now.
I'd like to think anybody who would be inclined to say that about Josh Allen learned a lesson from Patrick Mahomes. And also, all due respect to Stefon Diggs, Tyreek Hill is on a higher level and always has been on a higher level.
Of course, right.
Than Stefon Diggs or any other receiver in the NFL for that matter. It's not a slight at Stefon Diggs.
Yes.
It was a bigger deal for the Chiefs to move on from Tyreek Hill than it will be for the Bills to move on from Diggs, especially with his reduced production post week 6. Pete is pointing out that at the end of the regular season, reporters were wondering why Diggs' playing time was down. He was getting fewer snaps than Khalil Shakir and Trent Sherfield in some games. Josh Norman, who joined the Bills late. Remember Josh Norman, star corner for the Panthers in 2015 when they made it to the Super Bowl, then got franchise tag removed, signed with the Commanders, was a starter for a while, and now he's just kind of – and I respect the fact that he's taken whatever job he can, wherever he can get it. Said Norman of Diggs, he's getting playing time, he's just taking himself out. So it's not that he's not getting playing time, he chooses to do that. Another little thing that comes to light must have come to light at the time.
It did. We kind of talked about it at the time a little bit. We didn't shed a lot of light on it.
That he was doing it himself?
Right.
That he's tapping out himself?
Right.
I don't remember that.
Oh, you don't? I do remember this.
Pete, what's the date of this tweet?
It's
Pete,
January.
What's the date of this tweet?
Early. It's regular end of the regular season. Yeah. I remember a little bit. We referred to it just a little. We didn't make a segment on it, but I don't know if we actually talked about it on the show or maybe we talked about it off air. Norman, as we know, is, like you just explained, a footballer, right? He doesn't care. Wait, I'm 39. A team still wants me. Who cares? I'll go play football. That's what I do. And he's extremely real. Josh Norman is not one to BS. I've known him since he came out of college. He worked out at the place I worked out in Jersey. It was one of the first things I ever realized about the guy. I'm like, whoa, whatever's on this guy's mind, he will say. And that's for sure. And I think there's a little, inkling there into another why Buffalo is washing their hands of the situation and wants to move on.
By the way, he's not 39. He's 36.
I know. I was joking.
So
I was trying to make him older.
But not by much. 59 would have been more of an effective joke. 39, it made me think, is he 39? Has he been around that long? And I thought he'd be like 33. He is 36, but he keeps going wherever he gets the opportunity, and I do respect that. Guy's made a ton of money. Probably doesn't need that extra game check here or there, but loves the sport. It's the Joe Flacco dynamic, hanging around and continuing to play just because he loves to play. And he's going to play, like your dad said once upon a time, play until they rip the pads off of you. Because once it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.